Hello, everybody, and welcome to AMI Day 9. Before I get on to the rigmarole of what we will be doing today, I do need to share an announcement from the administration, and it's about picking up personal belongings. So, since you are sophomores, on May 5th, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 2 p.m., you will be able to come up here to the school and pick up your things. If you're unable to do that, you can call the high school lobby and arrange a different time. But only one student can be allowed in the lobby at a time, and no adults are allowed to come. So those are the rules that we going on for collecting your personal belongings. So on May 5th, you can come and get your things and clear out your lockers and return your books and whatnot. So let's now talk about AMI Day 9. So for AMI Day 9, I'm asking you to read an excerpt from Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad, then complete the narrative writing prompt provided on page 4 of the PDF. Now, Colton Whitehead's The Underground Railroad won the Pulitzer Prize a couple of years ago, I believe 2016, whenever it was published. Here is this particular book. I actually used to own a copy of this book, but someone borrowed it and never brought it back. It is a really good book. I read it last summer, near the beginning of last summer, and it is worth the read. It is about it's what if the Underground Railroad, the famous historical Underground Railroad, what if it was an actual railroad, uh, and like a physical railroad, because the Underground Railroad was not actually a railroad. It was just a organization, a network of people that would help get runaway slaves up north of the Mason-Dixon line to the Free States. But this follows the runaway slave named Cora through her journey. She starts off as a slave in Georgia, but then escapes. Then she goes through a variety of different elements of the South at that particular time. You have South Carolina, which is what the excerpt that you're going to be reading today will be about, and then North Carolina, Tennessee, Indiana, and finally she ends up going west. So let me end this, and I will swap it over to the actual assignment. There we go. So, and as the prompt even says, the Underground Railroad tells the story of a teenage runaway slave named Cora. In this passage, Cora is being helped by a man, Martin, and his wife, Ethel. They're both in South Carolina, and they're both white sympathizers that are trying to help these runaway slaves. So Martin and his wife Ethel are white, but they also encounter some problems. They are trying to hide her from the night riders or regulators who capture and return escaped slaves. Read the passage and then answer the questions that follow. So the first half of this is when Cora meets Ethel and Martin for the first time. She had just escaped from Actually, take that back. It takes place in North Carolina. She had just escaped from South Carolina for almost getting caught there, and she ends up in North Carolina with these two, and she has to hide in this particular attic and how it's set up, and it goes into vivid detail about how it looks, how it smells, how it feels, and you get an interesting interaction between Ethel and Cora during the first half, but they're in their first initial meeting. The second half, which it skips forward, this excerpt from the book skips forward a little bit, cuts out a couple pages of her being hiding up in the attic for a couple of days, and jumps forward to when the regulators show up and are searching the house. And so I want you just to read this little excerpt from an excellent novel, and then your prompt is for you to write a narrative. So I want you to write a story, but from a different perspective. So for this question, you'll write a narrative response based on the passages. Write your narrative in the space provided on the next 2 pages. Your writing should use characters, settings, events, and other details from the passages. Use correct grammar, spelling, and punctuation. I'm mainly looking for you just to tell the story. And based on the Underground Railroad, imagine how the story might have been told differently if it were written from the point of view of Ethel. That is Ethel is the wife of the sympathizer. Ethel's is the white woman whose house they are in. So you're going to write it from the point of view of Ethel. Create a journal entry written by Ethel reflecting on the events that happened in the passage. Your journal entry should provide insight into Ethel's thoughts and feelings, as well as her relationship with Cora. Be sure that you know about the characters, setting, events from the passage to develop your journal entry. All right, so that is the assignment for today. So read this excerpt from The Underground Railroad, an excellent book overall. I'd give it a thumbs up. I wouldn't necessarily give it two thumbs up. It was really good. It was really well written. It wasn't necessarily end all be all the greatest thing I ever read, but I give it a solid recommendation if you ever get a chance to read it. Read this little part of it and then do the prompt below. And I will see you all on, I believe, Tuesday of next week. Later. Actually, later now.